Hello, welcome to today's class. Today we'll be talking about the UN Clause 1982. It is nothing but the United Nations Convention on the Law of Sea. See, first of all, understand why this was necessary. See, first of all, the first and foremost reason to avoid the maritime conflict. Maritime conflict with respect to the boundary dispute, number one, and last but not the least, but also for the landlocked countries to have their right to have their right. Remember this. First of all, to avoid the boundary conflict, last but not least, for the maritime countries to have the right to access to seas. Next, for the economic usage of the marine resources peacefully without conflict. So basically, you have understood that the very purpose of the the UN clause or the United Nations Convention was to avoid this maritime conflict, and next, last but not least, for the economic usage of the marine resources in a peaceful manner. These are the two basic objectives. Now, let us come to how this UN clause has designated the seas. See, basically, this diagram would be more than enough to understand. See, first of all, you see that this is the land, and this is the projecting part of the land, I would say. Now, from the projecting part of the land up to 12 nautical miles. See, when I say 1 nautical mile, then it is equals to approximately 1.7 kilometers. Somewhere it is also 1.85, etc. But this is the basic thing. Now it says that up to 12 nautical miles we have your territorial sea. Remember that it is also up to this 12 nautical miles, that it is also consist of your national airspace. Means that within this 12 nautical miles we can deploy our navy, we can deploy our custom, excise, anything over here. This is exclusively our waters. No one can interfere within this water. See, now please understand the difference between the territorial sea and the contiguous zone. See, whenever in a particular continent there are large number of states, basically it is then they have a 12 nautical mile limit. Means it is up to 12 nautical mile, it is their exclusive territorial sea. But let us talk about Australia. Now Australia, what happens is that, as you have seen that, let us talk about this western coast of Australia. There is absence of any countries or any island in the western coast of Australia. As a result, the western coast of Australia will extend up to 25 nautical miles. But let us consider for India. India case, what happens is that we have our neighbor over here is the Bangladesh, and then we have our Indian one. Now in this context, we will basically have a 12 nautical miles, that is our territorial sea. I hope with this you got the difference between the territorial sea and your contiguous zone. Remember that, like similarly to the territorial sea, the contiguous zone is also the national airspace. Where is the contiguous zone? The contiguous zone is allocated in those regions where there is less number of countries, or there is one country only. Now, from the land, that is from the 12 nautical miles up to 200 nautical miles, or from the 24 nautical miles up to the 200 nautical miles, we have the exclusive economic zone. What is this exclusive economic zone? Exclusive economic zone means it gives the country the right to exploit the resources over here. Resources can be biotic and can be abiotic. Biotic means, example is your fish. Abiotic can be mineral resources, oil, etc. Now this entire can be explored. Now within this context, let me explain this to you with the help of your India diagram. See, now consider this as our India, and that this part is your Indian Ocean. Now you can see that the Indian Ocean, up to, see, this is up to 12 nautical miles we are having our territorial sea. But what of the area, or the entire Indian Ocean area? Now within this Indian Ocean area up to 200 nautical miles is your exclusive economic zone. Now in this exclusive economic zone, India does not has an exclusive right. Means other countries can also carry out exploration within this exclusive economic zone. This is the very reason that China is carrying out the manganese nodule research in the Indian Ocean basin. Though China does not share anywhere any boundary near the Indian Ocean, despite of it, it is going on search in the Indian Ocean basin. Remember this. Next, last but not least, we have the high seas. What is this high seas? This high seas is open area. Anyone can come over here, anyone can fish over here, and we have no issues with that. We do not need any permission from anyone. Yes, one more thing that you should remember, that if China is exploring in the Indian Ocean exclusive economic zone, then it has to take the permission of the seabed authority. This seabed authority was established under the UN clause. After permission from the seabed authority, then only China can carry out its exploration. Even if India wants to carry out its exploration, it also needs the permission of your seabed authority. Hence, from this what you get, that the exclusive economic zone, anyone can carry out any kind of operation but with permission from the seabed authority under the UN clause. But in high seas, no such permission is necessary. Anyone can do anything. Now, in this context, I would like to highlight an example. See, we have the Antarctica, and within this Antarctica, there is a economic activity that is called as the whaling. Whaling means nothing but killing of the large whales, or hunting of the whales is called whaling. This whaling is carried on by Japan and Russia. Now, Japan and Russia basically carry out this whaling near the Antarctica because these are the high seas. And this, as basically you can see that, see this within this high seas, no permission is necessary. Now, with understanding of this UN clause, let us understand that these laws also have certain demerit. Let us move on to the demerits of the law. See, the first and foremost problem is that it deprives the landlocked countries. What does it deprive the landlocked countries? I would like you to look in over here. See, landlocked nations have been given the right of access to the sea. Means Nepal, Bhutan, they have the right to access the sea through India. And India is nothing but the transit state, TRANSIT state. Means it would give access to both Nepal and it will give access to both Bhutan. But it largely depends on their relationship with the transit states. It means that if tomorrow there is an enmity of India with Nepal and Bhutan, India can block their access to the sea, and that they cannot take up this case in the UN clause. Remember this. This is one of the biggest problems of the landlocked countries. Next, the EEZ conflict. See, remember that I said you that what is happening now is that both in the Indian Ocean we have the China and India are the prominent player, where China in the EEZ is looking for manganese nodules. What are manganese nodules? These are nothing but mineral that consist of gold, copper. I hope you understand gold. I have written AU means aurum, that means gold, copper, iron. This is what China is exploring in the Indian economic EEZ. Similarly, India is also exploring in the EEZ. But again, the problem is that, let us move on to the South China Sea actual issue. See, what is happening in the South China Sea is that the China means, first of all, is that China is claiming the South China Sea. Again, there is Vietnam. Again, there is Philippines. Again, there is Malaysia, Brunei. It means that basically what happened is that the EEZ started a conflict which was not existent earlier, but it is existing now. It means that the EEZ concept was never able to actually resolve such kind of conflicts where the border coincided. This border of 200 nautical miles, when they coincided with the when the continents or when the countries are located in the closer area, this was never able to solve it. This is number 2. Then we have number 3, non-adherence to the UN clause law. See, in South China Sea, what happened is that China has expanded in the South China Sea, and it has taken up the Parcel Islands. It has taken up the Spratly Islands from Philippines and Vietnam, respectively. Now, in this context, what happens is that the UN clause basically said that the Chinese aggression and this Chinese acquiring the territory of Vietnam as well as Philippines is illegal. But China did not adhere to UN clause. Adhere means follow the law of UN clause. But on other hand, remember that India and Bangladesh also went to UN clause, where the favor was where the UN clause basically favored Bangladesh. And as a result of this, what happened was that India adhered to UN clause and Bangladesh was given its right in the Indian Ocean. But the same did not happen with the China case. Next, it's the maritime pollution. See, maritime pollution is extensive, that is from your territorial zone up to your high seas. But the UN clause remains quiet with respect to the responsibility of the polluter. Now, as you can see, exclusive in the South China Sea case itself, everyone has a claim in the South China Sea. But remember that the South China Sea is also suffering from your plastic pollution. Now, who will clear the plastic pollution in South China Sea? Nobody knows that. But everybody knows that whose resource belongs to whom in the South China Sea. This is another major problem of your UN clause. Next, indiscriminate usage of the biotic resource. Already, I have already talked about the whaling that is being taking place in the whaling that is taken place over here where in Antarctica by Japan and Russia. Japan and Russia are hunting whales in the Antarctica, and as a result of which the whale population has been declining significantly. What the problem of the UN clause is that it doesn't protect the biotic resources, though it means it has the law is unclear regarding to how the high seas should be treated. Remember this. And last, and I have already talked about this landlocked nation. So these are the five major problems that the UN clause law has within it, or I would say these are the five major flaws that the UN clause law has within it. I hope it is clear. Thank you. That will be all.